Hello there, fellow night owls, early birds, and anyone currently existing in that mysterious in-between time. Welcome to tonight's extended play, Deep Dive Waltz Back in Time. I'm so glad you've joined me for another journey into the past, where we'll be exploring a fascinating, often overlooked and, frankly, sometimes darkly funny slice of Victorian life. Tonight we're talking about something most history books kind of gloss over, probably because they're too busy detailing royal wardrobes or the thrilling exploits of men with giant sideburns, the lives of women who worked in Victorian brothels. I know, sounds weird for a bedtime story, right? Like, and then Goldilocks went to the Three Bears house, and it was actually a gentleman's club in Soho. But honestly, it's a surprisingly human, remarkably resilient, and utterly compelling story about real women just trying to survive in a world that wasn't exactly handing out free opportunities. No judgment here, folks, just historical curiosity with a dash of wow, I'm glad I wasn't there. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. It's the digital equivalent of dropping a shilling in my historical research hat, and it helps these forgotten voices reach more ears. And I'm super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. It always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. Are you in a futuristic pod in Tokyo? A cozy cabin in the Canadian wilderness? Or maybe just hiding from your responsibilities in a closet in Ohio? Either way, you're my people, and I'm honoured to be your guide through the historical shadows. All right, find that cozy spot. Get nestled in, take a nice, slow breath, and just let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to Victorian London, specifically 1857, the absolute peak of the era, where smog was basically a fashion accessory, everyone had consumption, and social hypocrisy was an Olympic sport. Trust me, you're going to be real grateful for that mattress by the time we're done. You might even hug your pillow. A chilly dawn in Haymarket. So, congratulations! You just woke up in London, 1857. It's early morning, maybe 5 or 6. And you're definitely not in some fancy 4-poster bed with satin sheets. Oh no, you're lying on a slightly lumpy horsehair mattress with a thin woolen blanket pulled over you. The sheets aren't fresh. They're changed once a week at best, which frankly was probably more often than some actual respectable households. They carry the faint, valiant scent of cheap lavender water that doesn't quite mask the mustiness beneath. It's doing its best, bless its heart, like a tiny, floral-scented superhero battling a legion of less pleasant aromas. The room is chilly. Coal for the small fireplace is strictly rationed, especially in the morning hours. You'd think with all the coal London was burning, turning the skies a perpetual shade of Dickensian grey, they'd have enough for everyone, but apparently even basic warmth was a luxury. The walls are covered in faded floral wallpaper, peeling slightly at the corners where dampness has seeped in, giving the room that charming, abandoned, haunted dollhouse aesthetic. There's a persistent smell that hits your nose, a mixture of coal smoke from thousands of chimneys, London's signature perfume, a bold blend of industry and grime, the nearby Thames with its distinct aroma of mud and sewage, Eau de Grimy River, a particularly potent vintage, and something sweeter and more chemical, the perfumes and cosmetics that are tools of the trade here. It's like a Victorian potpourri of desperation and desperation masking, all mingling in a strangely atmospheric cocktail. You're in a room at the back of a brothel in the Haymarket area of London. Not the worst establishment, not by a long shot. You're not in some dank, disease-ridden hovel where the floorboards might actually try to bite you, but certainly not one of the high-class ones either, where gentlemen with actual titles might stumble in, half drunk, thinking they're getting a discount duchess or perhaps a genuinely intellectual conversation. You share this small room with another woman. She's still asleep on the other narrow bed, her breathing deep and steady. Shifting slightly, you feel the springs of the mattress creak beneath you, groaning like an old man getting out of a pub chair after a particularly long session. You stretch your legs, pointing your toes, feeling that tension and then the relief as you relax again. Ah, that's nice. Just taking a moment before the day begins, before the reality of Victorian existence punches you in the face. Outside, London is already awake. You hear the clip-clop of horses' hooves on cobblestones, the rattle of cartwheels, and the first street vendors beginning their calls. "Fresh bread," someone shouts. From a few streets away, the voice echoing between the tall, grimy buildings. "This is your life. Mary, they call you here, though that's not the name your mother gave you. That one you keep tucked away like a precious, slightly bruised secret. You've been at this house for nearly 2 years now, which makes you something of a fixture, practically furniture, perhaps with a better story than the armoire. You've seen girls come and go. Some moved up to better houses. The ones with slightly less lumpy mattresses and maybe indoor plumbing, a true luxury. Some disappeared back to the soul-crushing poverty they came from. Some fell ill and never recovered. It's a revolving door, but not the kind with fancy doormen. More like a turnstile to a very uncertain future. You sit up slowly, letting the blanket pull around your waist. The floorboards are cold against your bare feet as you reach for the woolen shawl hanging on the bedpost and wrap it around your shoulders. Nice and snug. That feels better. On the small table between the beds sits a chipped ceramic pitcher and basin. The water inside has a thin film of ice on top. Oh, winter in London is brutal, an absolute joy. It's the kind of cold that feels like it's actively trying to get inside your bones and set up a permanent residence. You break it with your finger, the cold water stinging your skin before splashing your face. The shock of it fully wakes you, your breath catching for a moment before steadying again. It's a natural alarm clock, far more effective than any annoying bell, more like a swift, icy slap to consciousness. The path to Haymarket. Now let's talk about how you ended up here, in this room, in this life, because the story might not be what you'd expect. You weren't kidnapped or sold into this work as a child, though tragically, that did happen to some girls, especially the very young ones. Basically baby-faced bargaining chips in a brutal economic game. You weren't seduced and abandoned by some cad of a gentleman, left pregnant and destitute, though that too was a common enough tale, the Victorian equivalent of being ghosted after a bad date, but with significantly more life-ruining consequences. No, your path was more mundane, more representative of how most women found themselves in this profession. You were a seamstress, a good one, with nimble fingers and a keen eye for detail. You could sew a button on a moving train in a hurricane, probably, and make it look perfectly respectable. But there were hundreds of women like you in London, thousands even, all competing for the same poorly paid work. The British Quarterly once noted that, compared to the drudgery of a dressmaker's apprentice, factory work was mere play. And they weren't wrong. You would work 14, sometimes 16 hours a day, straining your eyes in poor light, which, let's be honest, was probably just a single flickering gas lamp. Your fingers cracked and bleeding in winter. And for what? Starvation wages that barely kept a roof over your head. You were literally stitching your fingers raw for enough money to buy half a potato and maybe a spoonful of gruel. The grim irony was that you were making beautiful clothes for ladies who would never dream of acknowledging your existence, let alone the conditions in which their finery was produced. You lean back against the wall now, feeling its solid support behind you, taking a deep breath. You roll your shoulders, feeling some of the tension release. Ah, that's better. Just easy and relaxed now. You remember the turning point clearly. It was winter 3 years ago. You hadn't eaten in 2 days. The room you rented was unheated, and you could see your breath misting in the air as you worked frantically to finish a commission that might pay enough for a week's lodging. Your fingers were so numb you kept pricking them with the needle, leaving tiny spots of blood on the fine white linen, decorating it with your own despair. It felt like every stitch was draining a piece of your very soul. A girl you knew, Jane, came to visit. You'd worked together once. She looked different now, healthier, better fed, wearing a wool dress that, while not fashionable by upper-class standards, was clean and warm and well-made. She brought food, actual hot food, a meat pie still steaming in its wrapping, and sat with you while you devoured it, trying not to seem as desperate as you felt. Jane waited patiently, like a wise, slightly better-fed oracle, observing your ravenous consumption without judgment. "There's a place," she said finally, her voice low but clear. "A house off Haymarket. The madame is strict, but fair. No funny business, no cruelty. 2 meals a day and a decent bed. Medical checks weekly. She paused, watching your face, letting the words sink in. You'd make in a night what you make in a week here, Mary, and you wouldn't be killing yourself with this. She gestured at the pile of sewing, a silent accusation against the brutality of your current existence. You didn't answer right away. You'd been raised properly in a God-fearing home. The thought of this other path was both terrifying and utterly alluring. But your parents were dead, your brothers scattered to the wind seeking work, and here you were, slowly starving to death, one stitch at a time. The weight of that memory settles over you, and you feel yourself sinking a little deeper into the mattress, your breathing slowing naturally, in and out just like that. Sometimes the choice isn't between right and wrong, but between bad and worse, and that meat pie smelled really, really good. It was the smell of survival, and for a hungry woman, that aroma trumped any moral qualms, morning rituals and shared dreams. The house is starting to wake up around you. You hear footsteps on the stairs. Heavy ones. Probably Mrs. Winters, the housekeeper, a woman whose footsteps alone could probably scare a rat into submission, and whose frown could curdle milk. There's the clatter of coal being shoveled, a fire being lit downstairs in the parlour where the customers wait. The scent of coffee drifts up. Real coffee, not chicory. This house prides itself on small luxuries. It's the little things that make a difference, apparently, even in a house of ill repute. Your roommate stirs, mumbling something in her sleep before turning over. Lily, she's called here. She's younger than you by a few years, maybe 19 to your 24. With auburn hair that the gentleman seemed to fancy, probably because it reminded them of some romantic painting. She came from a factory in Manchester, she told you once. The noise of the looms had made her partially deaf in one ear. So, you had a hard life. Now it's a slightly less hard, slightly louder life, but at least with better food. Time to get up properly. You have routines to follow, expectations to meet. Mrs. Winters runs a tight ship, and tardiness isn't tolerated. The madam, Mrs. Cartwright to her face, though the girls call her Carty when she's not around, probably with a roll of the eyes and a conspiratorial giggle, expects everyone downstairs and presentable by noon. The brothel operates on a precise schedule. Mornings are for cleaning, bathing and rest. Afternoons see a few regular customers. Businessmen on extended lunch breaks, mainly. Probably while trying to sneak in a quick meeting before heading back to the office, smelling faintly of cheap cologne and desperation. Evenings and nights are the busiest times, with the house often full until the early hours. It's basically a very specific kind of highly scheduled customer service job, but with far more sequins and significantly less pension. But now, in this quiet morning moment, you take your time. You reach for the tin on the bedside table and remove the small lump of beeswax inside, warming it between your palms. You then smooth it over your chapped lips. Another small luxury. Mrs. Cartwright insists that the girls take care of themselves. You're selling an illusion, girls, she often says, probably with a dramatic flourish of her hand and a knowing wink. Gentlemen don't want to see the reality of a working woman's life. You find yourself nodding slightly at the thought. Good advice, really. Most of the men who visit don't want reality, they want fantasy, escape, something different from their respectable wives and homes, something that makes them feel special or powerful or simply seen. And you, Mary, are very good at providing that very particular brand of escapism, even if it feels like a hollow shell of yourself. Standing up, you stretch fully, arms reaching toward the low ceiling, feeling the pleasant pull in your muscles. Your nightgown, a simple cotton affair, nothing like the silk and lace confections you wear for work, falls around your ankles as you move to the small wardrobe. During the day, when not entertaining, you wear ordinary clothes, a simple dress, practical shoes, nothing that would mark you out as different from any other working woman on the streets of London. That's important. While brothels themselves aren't illegal, public solicitation is. The police generally leave established houses alone, especially those that pay the expected bribes, a necessary cost of doing business apparently. But discretion is still necessary. You select a dark blue dress, slightly faded but well mended, and lay it on the bed. Getting dressed is a slower process than it will be later, when you might need to change quickly between customers. Now you can take your time, enjoying the routine of it. Stockings first, then petticoat, then corset. Not tightly laced during the day, just enough to provide structure. As you dress, you think about the day ahead. Tuesday is usually quiet. There might be a few regulars in the afternoon. Mr. Phillips, the bank clerk who visits every other week and mainly wants to talk about his stamp collection. You're pretty sure you know more about philately than he does now, and you could probably write a monograph on the subtle differences between penny blacks. Or perhaps the nervous young man who gives his name as Smith and never stays longer than 15 minutes. You suspect his mother still packs his lunch and he's just there for the mild thrill of transgression. You even have a name for him in your head, Mr. 15 Minutes. Outside, the sounds of London grow louder as the morning advances. A group of children run past below the window, their shrill voices rising above the general din. A dog barks somewhere nearby. A street vendor begins his melodic call. Knives to grind, knives to grind. The normality of it all still sometimes strikes you as strange. This life, this work that society condemns as the ultimate female degradation, happens right alongside ordinary London life. The baker delivers fresh bread to the brothel just as he does to the respectable boarding house next door. The coalman, the iceman, they all come and go, providing the same services they provide to any household. It's almost domestic, in its own peculiar, morally ambiguous way. You sit back down on the edge of the bed, taking a moment just to breathe, in through your nose, out through your mouth, nice and easy. That's it. There's a quiet knock at the door. "Hot water, miss," comes a voice. Young Betsy, the maid of all work. She's only 13, too young for the house's main business. Mrs. Cartwright took her in when she found her begging on the street, half-starved. Now she helps the housekeeper, runs errands, and sleeps in a tiny room off the kitchen. In a few years, she'll likely join the other girls, but for now she's protected, which is more than can be said for many children on London's streets. "Come in, Betsy," you call. The door opens and the girl enters, carrying a large jug of steaming water. Her face is freshly scrubbed, her brown hair neatly braided. "Morning, Miss Mary," she says cheerfully, pouring the hot water into your basin. "Cold one today," Mrs. Winters says. "Might be snow later." "Thank you, Betsy," you say, giving her a smile. "Had your breakfast yet?" "Yes, miss. Cook made porridge with treacle. There's coffee in the kitchen if you want some, and fresh bread too. This is another thing that makes this house better than some. Regular meals, decent food. In the worst brothels, girls might go hungry if business is slow or be fed scraps barely fit for consumption. Here, Mrs. Cartwright understands that healthy girls earn more money. It's an investment, really, in her product. A well-fed girl is a more appealing and therefore more profitable girl. Betsy leaves, and you wash properly with the hot water, enjoying the warmth on your skin. The routine is soothing. Face first, then neck, arms under your arms, and finally a quick rinse of your most intimate areas. Full bathing happens twice a week in this house, Wednesdays and Sundays, in the copper tub that's brought into the kitchen. It's more frequent than many respectable working-class women manage, actually. Cleanliness was often a luxury, not a given. Once washed, you feel more human, more prepared to face whatever the day brings. You run a comb through your hair, dark brown, thick, reaching halfway down your back when loose. For daytime, you twist it into a simple knot at the nape of your neck. Later, for work, you'll style it more elaborately, perhaps with the artificial hairpiece that adds volume and curls, turning you into a more polished, less just woke up and ready for coffee version of yourself. There's a small mirror propped on the dresser, its silver backing spotted with age. You check your reflection briefly. Your face is looking better than it did in your seamstress days. Regular food has filled out the hollows in your cheeks, added a healthier colour to your skin. Your eyes, though, they've changed. More guarded now, more watchful. You've seen things, know things, that the innocent girl from the countryside never imagined. You shake off the moment of reflection. No use dwelling on such thoughts, they only bring a quiet ache. Instead, you focus on finishing dressing, lacing your boots with practiced fingers, each movement precise and familiar, settling into the rhythm of the task. Your breathing naturally slows in and out, steady and calm. The day's rhythms and lingering dreams. Fully dressed now, you're ready to face the day. Your first task will be breakfast, then helping with the general cleaning of the house. Each girl has assigned duties. Yours include dusting the parlour and polishing the glasses in the small bar area. Mrs. Cartwright believes idle hands lead to trouble, so even when not entertaining customers, the girls are kept busy. It prevents boredom, which can lead to arguments, or worse, introspection. Lily finally stirs properly, sitting up with a yawn. "Morning," she mumbles, pushing her tangled hair from her face. "What time is it?" "Just past 7, you tell her. Plenty of time yet." She nods, stretching her arms above her head, her young body still limber and unburdened by years of hard labour. "Had that dream again," she says, her voice soft. "The one about the seaside. Have you ever been, Mary?" "To the sea. Once," you say, remembering a rare family outing years ago. "Brighton, when I was small." The memory is hazy, a sun-drenched blur of salty air and distant ships, a world away from the perpetual grey of London. "I'd like to go some day," Lily says, her voice wistful, almost a whisper. They say the air is different there, cleaner, that you can breathe proper. This is a common dream among the girls, saving enough to escape London, to start fresh somewhere else, away from the grime and the judgments. Some manage it, most don't. The money that seems so good compared to other women's work still slips away. Some to lodging and food, some to clothes and necessities for the job, some to small comforts and luxuries that make the life bearable. It's a cruel trick, enough to survive, but rarely enough to truly escape. "You will," you tell her, though you're not sure you believe it yourself. "Keep putting something aside each week, even just a shilling. It adds up." She nods, but you both know how hard it is to save. There's always something. A toothache needing treatment, a dress torn beyond mending, a friend in desperate need. Life has a way of consuming whatever small buffer you try to build. You feel a moment of heaviness at the thought, then consciously let it go. Your shoulders drop slightly as you exhale. That's better. Just easy now. "I'll see you downstairs," you tell Lily, who's finally getting up. "Don't be too long. Mrs. Winters was stomping about earlier, and you know what that means." "She's in a mood," Lily agrees with a grimace, pulling her shawl tighter. "I'll hurry." You leave the room, closing the door quietly behind you. The narrow hallway is dimly lit with worn carpet running its length. There are 4 other bedrooms on this floor, all similar to yours. Downstairs are the public rooms, the parlour where customers are received, a small dining room, the kitchen, and servants' quarters at the back. The best bedroom, reserved for Mrs. Cartwright's personal use, is on the ground floor, allowing her to monitor comings and goings, like a spider at the centre of its web. The house itself is narrow but tall, squeezed between similar buildings on a side street. It's respectably maintained on the outside, with clean curtains in the windows and a freshly painted door. Nothing identifies it as a brothel. There's no red light, no obvious sign. Customers know to come here through word of mouth, through discreet advertisements in certain publications, through the network of cab drivers and hotel porters who receive commissions for directing gentlemen this way. It's all very discreet, like a secret handshake for gentlemen of a certain persuasion, hidden in plain sight. As you descend the stairs, the smell of coffee grows stronger, mingling now with baking bread and frying bacon. Your stomach rumbles in response. The wooden stairs creak slightly underfoot, a homely, familiar sound. You run your hand along the banister, feeling its smoothness from years of similar touches. The house is warming up now, as fires are lit in the main rooms. That persistent London chill is retreating, at least within these walls. You can hear the housekeeper's voice from the kitchen giving instructions to the cook, the normal domestic sounds of any household beginning its day. And for now, in this moment, it could almost be any house, any life. There's a rhythm to the morning that's soothing in its predictability, a pattern that carries you forward, one step at a time, through each day. You feel your body settling into that rhythm, your breathing matching its gentle pace, in and out, easy and calm. You pause at the bottom of the stairs, taking a moment just to be. Your muscles feel loose and comfortable, your mind quiet. Despite everything, there's a certain peace in this moment, in the simple fact of being alive, of having survived another night in a city that devours so many. The kitchen door is open, warm light spilling into the hallway. You can see the cook at the stove, her broad back turned to you as she works. Betsy is setting the table in the corner where the servants and girls eat together. Mrs. Winters is reading a letter, her spectacles perched on her nose, her grey hair neatly tucked under a cap. An ordinary scene, a moment of calm before the complex dance of the day begins. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs completely, and then release it slowly, your shoulders dropping, tension flowing away like water. You're ready now. You step forward into the kitchen's warmth, into the mingled scent of coffee and bread and wood smoke, into the quiet chatter of the beginning day. There's bacon frying in the pan, its rich aroma making your mouth water slightly. Your stomach gives another little rumble of anticipation. "Morning, Mary," says the cook without turning around. She has an uncanny ability to identify each person by their footsteps. It's practically a superpower, probably honed by years of listening for trouble. "Sleep well?" "Well enough," you answer, moving to help Betsy with the table settings. The routine of it is comforting, the familiar weight of the plates, the precise arrangement of the cutlery. Your hands move automatically while your mind drifts, pleasant and unfocused. Outside, London continues to wake. A church bell rings in the distance, marking the hour. Voices call in the street. Vendors, neighbours, children. The endless symphony of the city rises and falls like breath, in and out, like waves at that seaside lily. Dreams of visiting, rising and falling. A gentle rhythm that carries you along as you sink deeper into the familiar patterns of the day. Your body relaxed and comfortable. Your breathing steady and slow as you move around the warm kitchen, helping prepare for breakfast with the others. The smell of fresh bread grows stronger as the cook takes a loaf from the oven, its crust golden brown and crackling slightly as it cools. The kitchen table is large and rectangular, scarred with years of use. 8 chairs are squeezed around it, enough for the 5 girls currently working in the house, plus Mrs. Winters, Betsy and cook. Mrs. Cartwright takes her meals separately in her private sitting room, maintaining the distance that she believes necessary for proper management. You slip into your usual chair, feeling the smooth, worn wood beneath you. The seat has been polished by years of use, shaped by countless bodies before yours. There's something comforting about that continuity, that shared experience across time, a silent testament to all the women who have sat here before you, just trying to get through another day. You settle in, feeling the solid support beneath you. Cook brings over a large pot of porridge, setting it in the centre of the table with a satisfying thud. It's good porridge, thick and creamy, made with milk rather than water, sweetened with a spoonful of treacle. Another of the small luxuries that marks this house as a cut above the most basic establishments. "Eat up while it's hot," Cook says, her broad face flushed from the stove's heat. She's a widow in her 50s, came to work here after her husband's death left her destitute. Never comments on the nature of the business, just cooks and keeps to herself. She believes good food is the foundation of health, a sort of culinary Hippocratic oath. You help yourself to a generous bowl, the steam rising in fragrant curls. The first spoonful is hot and sweet on your tongue, the texture smooth and comforting. You close your eyes briefly, just enjoying the simple pleasure of good food when you're hungry. The other girls filter in gradually. First Emily, a petite blonde who's been here about 6 months, still sometimes looking a little shell-shocked by the whole experience. Then Sarah, older than most at nearly 30, with a no-nonsense attitude and a surprising talent for numbers. She helps Mrs. Cartwright with the accounts, proving that even in a brothel, a good accountant is invaluable, especially when dealing with creative expenses. Last is Josephine, the newest, still adjusting to the life, her eyes often red from private tears. Lily finally appears, hair hastily pinned up, still looking half asleep. She slips into the chair beside you just as Mrs. Winters begins serving the coffee. "Nearly missed breakfast," you murmur, passing her the porridge pot. "Worth it for an extra 10 minutes in bed," she whispers back with a small smile. The coffee here is another luxury. Real coffee, not the chicory substitute that most working-class households make do with. It's strong and hot, sweetened with sugar for those who want it. You cradle the cup in both hands, feeling its warmth seep into your fingers. Nice and cosy. The rich aroma rises with the steam, rich and slightly bitter, a proper start to the day. Breakfast is a mostly quiet affair. There's an unspoken rule against discussing business this early. Instead, the conversation drifts to ordinary topics. The weather, a funny story about the butcher's delivery boy slipping in the alley yesterday. Speculation about whether the greengrocer's wife is expecting again. London's favourite spectator sport. Normal conversation, everyday matters. The kind of talk that happens around thousands of breakfast tables across London every morning. This normality is important. A reminder that despite the nature of the work, this is also just a place where people live, eat, sleep, and go about their daily business. You feel yourself relaxing into this ordinary moment, your shoulders dropping slightly, your breathing deep and even. The food settles warm in your stomach, providing energy for the day ahead. You take another sip of coffee, savouring the rich bitterness, and for a quiet moment, the outside world and its judgments fade away. Chores, cleanliness, and quiet contemplation. After breakfast, the day's chores begin. The house runs on a strict schedule, with specific tasks assigned to each girl, not just for efficiency, but because Mrs. Cartwright believes that routine and responsibility help maintain order and prevent the chaos that plagues less well-run establishments. It prevents boredom, which can lead to arguments, or worse, introspection. Today, your morning duties include dusting the parlour and polishing the glasses in the small bar area. Simple, repetitive tasks that allow your mind to wander while your hands stay busy. There's something meditative about such work. The regular motion, the gradual transformation from dusty to clean, dull to shining. It's the zen of Victorian housekeeping, just with more dust motes and existential dread. The parlour is the main public room of the house where customers are first received. It's decorated in a style that might be called respectable with hints of luxury. Solid furniture in dark wood upholstered in red velvet that's slightly worn at the arms but still plush. Heavy curtains in a matching shade tied back during the day to admit what little London sunlight filters through the perpetual haze of coal smoke. A few carefully chosen paintings on the walls, landscapes mostly, with one mildly suggestive classical scene featuring draped nymphs. Nothing too obvious, nothing that would immediately identify this as a brothel to a casual observer. That's deliberate. Maintaining a veneer of respectability protects everyone. If a police officer did enter, there would be nothing immediately incriminating to see, just a private home with several young women in residence. Suspicious perhaps, but not definitively illegal. It was all about plausible deniability, a cornerstone of Victorian morality. You begin your dusting, working methodically around the room. Feather duster first for the larger surfaces, then a slightly damp cloth for the more detailed work. The familiar motions are soothing, requiring just enough attention to keep your mind occupied without demanding deep concentration. As you work, you can hear the house around you. Mrs. Winters instructing Betsy on the proper way to black the kitchen range. A very serious business, apparently, worthy of military precision. Cook humming tunelessly as she kneads dough for the day's bread. Billy's light footsteps overhead as she makes the beds. Ordinary domestic sounds that could belong to any household. The mantelpiece holds several ornaments. A china shepherdess, a small brass clock, a pair of decorative urns. You dust each carefully, replacing them in exactly the same positions. Mrs. Cartwright notices if things are moved even slightly. She has an eye for detail sharper than any needle. The clock ticks steadily, marking the peaceful morning rhythm. Through the window you can see a slice of London life. A maid beating a rug in the small yard behind the house next door. A cat picking its way fastidiously along a garden wall. A boy running with a message clutched in his hand. You move to the small bar in the corner of the room. It's not elaborate, just a cabinet containing glasses and a few bottles of spirits. Most customers are offered a glass of sherry or brandy when they first arrive, a social nicety, a way of easing the transaction. The glasses need polishing. They develop a film in London's sooty air even when not used. You take each one, breathing gently on it before rubbing with a soft cloth in circular motions. The glass makes a soft squeaking sound as it comes clean, reflecting the dim light and gleaming facets. The repetitive motion is almost hypnotic. Round and round. Your breathing naturally synchronizes with the movement, in as you begin the circle, out as you complete it. Slow and steady. Your hands know just how much pressure to apply, enough to clean effectively without risking breaking the delicate crystal. Time passes peacefully as you work. The morning light shifts gradually, painting slow-moving patterns on the floor. Your mind drifts to pleasant, undemanding thoughts, the afternoon ahead, the book you're slowly reading in your spare moments. Dickens' latest, borrowed from Sarah, who gets them from a customer who owns a bookshop. A true luxury, those circulating libraries. The new ribbon you might buy for your hair if business is good this week. Simple thoughts, immediate concerns. You've learned not to dwell too much on the past or worry too far into the future. This life teaches you to exist primarily in the present, to take each day, each hour, each moment as it comes. It's a survival mechanism, a way to keep your sanity when the world outside feels like it's trying to chew you up and spit you out. The sound of the front door opening and closing brings you back to full awareness. Heavy footsteps in the hallway, a man's tread. Then Mrs. Cartwright's voice, pitched lower than she uses with the girls, her tone professional but welcoming. "Good morning, Doctor. Thank you for coming so promptly." It's Wednesday, medical examination day. Every week the doctor visits to check the girls for signs of disease. It's one of Mrs. Cartwright's strictest rules and one of the reasons her house maintains its reputation. In many brothels, disease runs rampant, with devastating consequences for both the women and their customers. Here, any girl showing symptoms is immediately removed from work and treated. Expensive in the short term, but ensuring the long-term viability of the business. After all, healthy girls are profitable girls, and a good reputation meant repeat business from gentlemen who valued their own health, and discreet reputation. You finish polishing the last glass, setting it carefully in place. The doctor's arrival means a change in the day's rhythm. Examinations will take most of the morning, conducted in Mrs. Cartwright's private sitting room, converted temporarily into a consulting room. Each girl will be seen individually, the results recorded in a small notebook that Mrs. Cartwright keeps locked in her desk, probably next to a stack of IOUs and her secret stash of chocolate. You return the polishing cloth to the kitchen, where Mrs. Winters is now supervising Betsy's efforts at vegetable preparation. Carrots and onions are being chopped for the midday stew, their fresh, earthy scent mingling with the yeasty smell of rising bread dough. "Parlour's done," you tell Mrs. Winters. "Shall I help here until the doctor's ready for me?" She looks up from inspecting Betsy's knife technique. "No need. He's seeing Josephine first, then Lily. You've time for your washing if you want." Personal laundry is done individually, each girl responsible for her own intimate items. The laundress comes only for sheets, towels, and larger pieces. So, once a week, usually on Wednesdays, before bathing, you wash your personal things, the cloths used for monthly courses, undergarments, stockings. You collect your basket from the small cupboard off the kitchen and carry it through to the scullery at the back of the house. It's cooler here, with a stone floor and a large sink. You pump cold water into a copper basin, then add a kettle of hot water from the range to take the chill off. The physicality of washing is satisfying, the rhythmic movement of hands in water, the transformation of soiled to clean. You work methodically, rubbing soap into the fabric, working it with your fingers, rinsing thoroughly. The water turns cloudy, tiny soap bubbles catching the light in rainbow colours. This quiet, necessary task gives you time to think. The doctor's visit always prompts reflection. It's a reminder of the risks of this life, the diseases that can ravage a woman's body, bringing pain, disfigurement, and eventually death. You've seen it happen to others. A persistent cough that gets worse, not better. Suspicious sores that don't heal. The telltale signs that mean a girl will soon disappear from the house, usually to one of the charitable hospitals if she's lucky, or to suffer alone if she's not. So far, you've been fortunate. Careful. Mrs. Cartwright insists that certain precautions are taken with all customers. Not foolproof, but better than nothing. And the weekly examinations catch problems early when they can still be treated. Still, you know this luck cannot last forever. Few women survive more than a few years in this profession without contracting something. It's a calculated risk, weighing the certainty of starvation in more respectable work against the possibility of disease in this one. It's a grim calculus, but a necessary one, a silent bargain you make with yourself every day. You wring out the last piece, a cotton chemise, twisting it firmly to remove excess water. The muscles in your forearms flex with the motion, a pleasant sensation of strength and capability. Your hands, despite the harsh soap and water, are still relatively soft and smooth. Another necessity of the work: customers don't want to feel calloused hands on their skin. Carrying the damp laundry, you head out to the small yard behind the kitchen. A clothesline stretches from the house to a post near the wall, and you hang your things carefully, using wooden pegs to secure them against the breeze. The air is cold but dry, good drying weather if the threatened snow holds off. The yard is tiny, just a small rectangle of flagstones with a few struggling plants in pots, but it's open to the sky, and after the confines of the house you take a moment just to breathe the outside air. It's not fresh by any rural standard. London's atmosphere is always tainted with smoke and fog, but it's cooler and cleaner than inside. You tilt your face up, feeling the weak winter sunlight on your skin, a rare moment of pure physical pleasure, asking nothing of you, just the sensation of light and air. Your breathing deepens naturally, your chest expanding more fully. That feels good. Just taking a moment for yourself, a brief stolen breath of something akin to peace. The back door opens and Lily pokes her head out. "Doctor's almost done with me. You're next," she says. Then, noting your upturned face, "Anything interesting up there in the sky?" You smile, lowering your gaze. "Just the usual. Sun, cloud, freedom." She snorts softly, understanding the half-joke. "Well, come in before you freeze. Mrs. Winters is heating water for tea, and Cook's made those currant buns you like." The promise of warm food and drink is tempting after the cold yard. You follow Lily inside, feeling the heat of the kitchen envelop you like an embrace. The contrast makes your skin tingle pleasantly as circulation returns to your chilled fingers. The kitchen is the heart of the house, the warmest room where everyone gravitates in their free time. Now, with midday approaching, it's busy with food preparation. Cook stands at the large table rolling out pastry for a meat pie, her strong arms dusted with flour to the elbows. Mrs. Winters sits in the corner chair that's unofficially hers, darning a stocking with tiny, precise stitches. Betsy moves between them, fetching, carrying, learning by observation and instruction. You accept a mug of tea from Lily, wrapping your hands around its warmth. The steam rises, carrying the comforting aroma of tea and the promise of a warm currant bun. And for a moment, just a moment, the world outside this kitchen, outside this house, fades away. Midday and the gentleman call. After your medical checkup, which is as impersonal and brisk as always, you return to the kitchen. The doctor, a portly man with tired eyes and a surprisingly gentle touch, gives a curt nod to Mrs. Cartwright, confirming that you, along with the others, are fit for business. It's a relief you feel deep in your bones, a weekly reprieve from the spectre of illness. Back in the kitchen, the currant buns are indeed warm and delicious, a buttery, sweet counterpoint to the savoury porridge. The atmosphere is relaxed, a brief truce before the evening's performance begins. The girls linger over their tea, chatting about inconsequential things, a new novel someone is reading, a particularly irritating customer from last night, speculation about a new bonnet seen on a respectable lady in the street. This camaraderie, these quiet moments of shared humanity are precious. You are all in this together, navigating a world that often sees you as disposable. Your bonds are forged in shared experience, a silent understanding that transcends words. Lily is telling a story about a gentleman who kept asking her to recite poetry, even offering extra payment for particularly long or obscure verses. "He seemed more interested in my memory than anything else," she says with a giggle, though I made sure to pretend otherwise. Sarah rolls her eyes playfully. "That's nothing. I had one who insisted on playing chess, claimed it stimulated the mind before anything else." You all laugh, a genuine sound that briefly fills the kitchen with warmth. The absurdities of their customers are a frequent source of amusement, a way to reclaim some dignity from the transaction. By early afternoon, the house shifts gears. The more rigorous cleaning of the morning is done. Now, it's about preparation for the evening. You might take a short nap if the previous night was particularly long, or perhaps read a few chapters of your book. The quiet reading hours are a sanctuary, a mental escape into other lives, other worlds, where women might choose their own destinies. You often wonder what it would be like to be a heroine in one of those novels, making grand decisions, falling in love instead of merely surviving. As the afternoon wears on, a few early customers begin to arrive. These are typically the regulars, men who prefer the quieter hours, perhaps seeking companionship more than anything else. Mr. Phillips, the stamp collector, might appear, his face flushed slightly from the brisk London air. He's harmless, almost sweet in his earnestness about his hobby. You guide him to the parlour, offer him a glass of sherry, and settle in for another lesson on the intricacies of postal marks. He pays well for your undivided attention, and you've learned to genuinely feign interest in the various monarchs depicted on the tiny squares of paper. It's an easy income, a pleasant diversion, and you don't have to work too hard to earn it. Other callers might be nervous young men, perhaps on their first visit to such an establishment. They stumble over their words, eyes darting around the room, clearly terrified of being caught. You handle them with gentle professionalism, putting them at ease, knowing that a calm, experienced hand can make all the difference. Mrs. Cartwright has taught you well. Confidence, girls, is everything. A nervous man wants to be led. You embody that confidence, even if your stomach flutters with a familiar weariness. There are also the business travellers passing through London, looking for a temporary escape from lonely hotel rooms and the pressures of commerce. They are often direct, sometimes brusque, but generally eager to conclude their business and move on. You meet their directness with your own, efficient and professional, and send them on their way. The night's transformation. As dusk begins to fall, the house undergoes its most significant transformation. Lamps are lit throughout the parlour and dining room, casting a warm, inviting glow that pushes back against the encroaching London gloom. Fires are stoked, their crackle and warmth a welcome contrast to the damp outside. The air fills with the scents of lamp oil burning coal and the anticipation of evening. This is when the girls truly transform. Your daytime attire is shed, replaced by the working clothes, the silks, velvets and laces that are a far cry from your simple cotton nightdress. You spend longer at the mirror, applying the cosmetics that Mrs. Cartwright provides. Rice powder to lighten your complexion, rouge to your cheeks and lips, kohl to darken your eyes. You carefully arrange your hair, perhaps adding the artificial pieces, creating voluminous curls and elegant waves. It's a mask, a persona you adopt, a way to separate the Mary who was a seamstress, the Mary who dreams of the seaside, from the Mary who entertains gentlemen. This transformation is crucial. It allows you to step into a role, to perform, without fully exposing your inner self. You are, in essence, becoming a commodity, and commodities must be polished to a shine. The sounds of the house shift too. The quiet, domestic hum of the day gives way to the muffled clatter of bottles in the bar, the low murmur of voices downstairs as the first evening customers arrive, and the occasional burst of piano music if Mrs. Cartwright has hired a musician for the night. The evenings are a dizzying blur of faces, names, often false, and conversations. You learn to read men quickly, their desires, their anxieties, their hidden vulnerabilities. Some want flattery, some want to boast, some simply want to be listened to without judgment. You become an expert at active listening, at asking just the right questions, at feigning interest in the most mundane of details. It's a performance, an emotional labour as much as a physical one. You meet men from all walks of life, prosperous merchants, clerks, army officers, even the occasional aristocratic rake slumming it in Haymarket. They come for various reasons: loneliness, curiosity, a desire for anonymity, or simply a need for physical release. You treat them all with the same practiced courtesy and detachment. You have developed a repertoire of phrases, a dance of veiled suggestions and gentle refusals, always maintaining control of the interaction. Mrs. Cartwright insists on it. A lady always dictates the terms, girls. Never forget your worth. It's a bizarre form of empowerment, born from a position of profound vulnerability. There are moments of genuine connection, rare and fleeting, but they happen. A kind word from a gentleman, a thoughtful gesture, a shared laugh that feels almost real. These are the moments you hold on to, the small glimmers of humanity in a profession that often strips it away, but mostly it's transactional. a negotiation of desires and expectations, concluded with the exchange of money. The money is good, certainly better than starvation wages for stitching, but it comes at a cost, a subtle erosion of the self, a quiet hardening around the edges of your soul. As the night deepens, the house fills with cigar smoke, the clinking of glasses, and the rising crescendo of chatter and laughter. Your feet ache in your fine shoes, your smile feels painted on, and the perfume and coal smoke mingle to create a heavy, cloying atmosphere. You move between the parlour and the private rooms, a silent efficiency in your movements. You are tired, but you push through, driven by the knowledge that each customer brings you closer to your weekly payment and a little closer to Lily's dream of the seaside, or your own, whatever that might be now. The aftermath and lingering shadows. The busiest hours stretch into the early morning. Around 2 or 3 a.m. the flow of customers begins to slow. The most persistent ones finally leave, their voices fading into the stillness of the pre-dawn London streets. The house settles into a tired quiet. This is when the girls gather in the kitchen again, no longer in their elaborate working clothes, but in simple nightdresses and shawls, exhausted but relieved. Cook might have left a pot of lukewarm tea, or perhaps a bit of leftover stew. You sit around the table, a stark contrast to the lively dinner discussions of breakfast. Now the talk is subdued, tired. You share anecdotes from the night, exchange knowing glances about particularly odd customers, or simply sit in companionable silence, too weary for words. Sometimes one of the younger girls, like Josephine, might weep quietly, overwhelmed by the day's events. You and Sarah and Emily offer quiet comfort, a hand squeeze, a shared sigh. There's a ritual to it, a communal unwinding. Before finally retiring, you perform a simplified version of your morning ablutions. A quick wash, the removal of the heavy makeup, a brush through your hair. You look at yourself in the mirror again, seeing the tired eyes beneath the fading coal, the faint lines of fatigue around your mouth. This is the real you, revealed only to yourself in the dim light of your room. You return to your shared room where Lily is already asleep, her breathing deep and even. You slip under your thin woolen blanket, the horsehair mattress feeling both familiar and oddly comforting after a night of forced pleasantries. The faint scent of cheap lavender water is still there, mingled now with the lingering traces of tobacco and the subtle, sharp tang of disinfectant used downstairs. You close your eyes, the sounds of London now muted to a distant hum. Sleep comes quickly, a deep, necessary oblivion. But even in sleep, the day's experiences sometimes bleed into your dreams. Fleeting images of strange faces, disembodied voices, the clinking of coins. Sometimes you dream of the sea, of Brighton, a vast expanse of clean, cold air, washing away all the grime and the memories. You reach for it, a desperate yearning, but it always recedes, just out of reach. The unseen realities. This is your life, Mary. A constant balance between illusion and reality, between the performance of desire and the stark necessity of survival. It's a life lived on the fringes of respectable society, yet inextricably linked to it. The gentlemen who visit are often pillars of that very society, husbands, fathers, businessmen, politicians. They demand discretion, and the house provides it, maintaining a carefully constructed bubble of secrecy. The legal landscape is always a precarious one. While brothels are not strictly illegal, individual acts of public solicitation are. This meant established houses like Mrs. Cartwright's, which paid the right people and maintained a low profile, were generally tolerated. But the threat of a raid, a moral crusade, or a new zealous police chief was always present. It's a dance, a constant negotiation with authority, a silent understanding that as long as appearances are maintained and the right palms are greased, everyone can continue their business. The daily expenses are relentless. A portion of your earnings goes to Mrs. Cartwright for lodging, food, and the protection of the house. Another portion goes for the weekly medical checks and for the cosmetics and elaborate clothing necessary for the work. There's always the need for new ribbons, fresh gloves, better shoes. Then there are the unexpected costs. A toothache, a persistent cough, the occasional small comfort like a special pastry or a new book. Saving is difficult, a a constant uphill battle against the demands of the present. Yet, the dream of escape of a different life persists. For some, it might be marriage, though that's rare for women in this profession. More often, it's a quiet retirement to a small cottage in the countryside, far from the choking fog and judging eyes of London. You're not alone in this life. There are thousands of women like you across London, across England, forced into this profession by circumstance, by poverty, by a society that offered them precious few other options. They are the invisible women, the ones erased from the polite histories, yet they are as much a part of the Victorian fabric as any factory worker or governess. They are the mirror reflecting the darker, unspoken desires of a society obsessed with respectability. As the sun begins to rise, a pale, weak light filtering through the grime of London's skyline, you are still asleep. Your breathing is slow and steady, your body finally at rest. The city outside begins its gradual awakening, the distant sounds of horses and carts and street vendors once again filling the air. For now, in this quiet, shared room, you are simply Mary, a woman sleeping, dreaming and preparing in your own unique way to face another day in Victorian London. And so, as we gently leave Mary and her companions to their slumber, consider the layers of their lives, the mundane routines, the small luxuries, the shared laughter, the constant threat, and the ever-present dream of something more. Their story, often untold, offers a profound glimpse into the hidden corners of history, reminding us that even in the most challenging circumstances, human resilience, dignity, and a touch of dark humour can always find a way to shine through.